Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Brad Little.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's always nice to be here with my friends at the Boise Chamber and all the leaders of what I consider to be the heartbeat of Idaho. I want to recognize my longtime friend, going back a long ways, Ray Stark, they said he was retiring, but now, you want me to change that, Marissa? Okay. Well, I'm not going to give Ray another shout out. But actually, when I was a student and involved in a little bit of the Idaho legislature, Ray worked for the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee and was one of the analysts there. So I've known Ray for a long time. But I thought it was an imminent retirement, but it sounds like he's going to hang around for a long time. And then I also want to acknowledge, I think there's only two legislators here, both friends of mine, Majority Leader Chuck Winder and Caucus Chairman of the House, Megan Blanksma. I don't know where Chuck is. He probably heard I was speaking and decided not to come. And then anybody that serves in both city and local government, thank you for being here. But this is kind of a special place for me. Jack's urban meeting place. The inspiration for this facility was actually quite a mentor of mine. As I look at where Idaho is today and where we've been, I often think about Jack and how he epitomized the progress of Idaho. His family, like 99, maybe 100% of us, I don't see any of my First Nations friends here, migrated to Idaho. And originally, and so that's something that almost all of us have in common. But he also, and I think the entrepreneurs in this room have in common with him, but he does in a special way, the ideas, the concepts of hard work and innovation. Just as Idaho has been on a rapid rise from old traditional industries to incredibly modern production, our state has changed. JR and a half dozen other Idaho pioneers had the foresight to invest in Micron when others had very little interest. And it's interesting, all those original founders all had pretty agrarian ties to the state of Idaho, with the exception of two brothers from Blackfoot. When I was involved in Idaho Business Week, Jack every year would make the effort to come down from McCall and speak to about 500 high school kids about the fundamentals of business, the fundamentals of free enterprise, and he'd inspire those kids in a lot of ways. He'd talk about hard work, getting a great education, and investing in innovating. Jack, nearly 35 years ago, would tell those kids, boy, someday there's going to be these robots, and they're going to do all this stuff. And I remember the kids would say, well, Mr. Simplot, if these robots do all the work, what will we do? He says, well, you'll build the robots. I said, well, we all can't build robots. He says, what are they going to do? He said, well, maybe you'll only work 4 days a week. Mr. Simplot, are you going to work 4 days a week? Hell no, I'm not going to work 4 days a week. And then he'd pull out, much to the chagrin of the people at Mike, he'd pull out a disc full of chips and say, boy, these chips are going to change the world. And he'd have some fiber optic cable in the other pocket. And he talked about it. And, those of us that knew where Jack came from, it was just incredible. But this building talks about that. He anticipated the need for new high-tech industries and careers to replace those lost to automation, and the need for an education system to get that done. Jack was instrumental in the Material Science College at Boise State University. Today, Idaho reflects his and thousands of entrepreneurs who had those values. There's too many to name when I sit here and look out the window, whether it's Count, whether it's Silver Draft Supercomputing, whether it's Albertsons that started right here, and we're glad you're back, John. Of course, you've been back for a while, but now you're really back. And whether it's in the traditional fields of agriculture and food processing or cutting-edge semiconductors and software, Jack would love to see Boise today, even with the rapid change. The upsides are the influx of people. Some of our kids get a chance to choose to stay here in Idaho and be successful. And a lot of them that left have come back to Idaho because of our incredible growth. Those people energize our job market, but most importantly, they diversify and make our economy all over the state more resilient. Those of us who've been around since earlier times remember when Idaho and Boise had no growth. In fact, we were exporting way too many of our kids. I vastly prefer the situation we have today. Other aspects of rapid growth are the growing pains, especially in the areas of infrastructure, essential governmental services, education, transportation, social services, and incarceration. My overarching goal is to create an environment where we can all thrive and our children have that opportunity to choose to stay right here in Idaho. My governing philosophy is based on 4 simple budgeting concepts. Don't spend money that you don't bring in. Save money in preparation for a potential downturn. There'll always be one. Make investments where they matter to allow those of us that are here to thrive and for our children, again, to choose to stay. And including steps to put budget surpluses back into taxpayers' pockets. We just ended our fiscal year in Idaho. We had over $100 million cash surplus at the end of it. We're forecast next year to have somewhere around $170 million. Tie that to the fact that we're going to have over $500 million in our rainy day funds to give us that resilience to prepare us for whatever slowdown may occur, whether it be globally, whether it be nationally. I don't think it'll be here in Idaho. We will be a victim rather than a cause of some kind of a slowdown. But most recently, we have significantly cut the regulatory hurdles for business by around 40% if you add what we've taken out and what we've simplified. And today, working with the legislature, we're aiming to get that number up to 60%. That's a good start. Idaho is being recognized nationally for these efforts. I want to give credit to all the state agencies that rolled up their sleeves. Some of them were a little slow to start, but believe me, the people that work for us in the state of Idaho have drank the Kool-Aid about how we need to make the regulatory environment better, and the whole country's looking. The state of Idaho's budget is sound. In Idaho, we manage public dollars as the public expects. I believe people and businesses are choosing to relocate or expand in Idaho because how we respect the hard-earned money and the hard-earned efforts of our citizens and businesses. To that end, businesses absolutely need college and career-ready task force. Education is both our constitutional and our moral obligation, and it's my biggest priority. This morning I addressed all the superintendents and the principals that are meeting just across the street at the Grove, and I told them likewise that they're part of my team and I'm part of their team to do all we can to advance education. Businesses large and small, wherever I go in Idaho, talk about the need for college prepared, for career prepared, for a better workforce as our state continues to modernize and expand. Creating a strong, accountable K-12 system is the first responsibility of state government. My first legislative session, and I want to thank the legislators, we raised starting teacher pay. We doubled the state's investment in literacy. We increased opportunity scholarships for both traditional college and career technical. And we started an Our Kids Idaho Future Task Force, which many all over the state are working on. I'm very optimistic about the results. We've got them on a pretty abbreviated time frame. This isn't going to be one of these task forces that goes on forever, but I really asked them to do 2 things. Tell me what we need to do to advance literacy, so that all our kids are reading proficiently at the end of the third grade. And tell me what we need to do to kick kids out of school at the end of when they graduate, where they're prepared for college and they're prepared for kids. That's what we want to do. We want to have the maximum efficiency in our education system at doing those two things. I want to leave some time for questions, but I want to address some of our more vexing issues. Obviously, the affordability and the accessibility of health care is a big one. This morning I was on the phone with the federal director of CMS. She and I are having quite a relationship given all the things that we're doing in Idaho right now. And everyone knows that we're going to implement Medicaid on the 1st of January. And what we need to do that as efficiently as possible. And we are, Director Jepson's doing a great job over there. We're working our way through it. It seems like at the federal level, there's either a court case or a change that makes that more difficult. But regardless of what changes take place, we're going to get that done in Idaho. That's going to make a difference in some of the other areas that we have to work for. It's going to help us in the mental health area, and it's going to help us in the substance abuse area, because a lot of these people that are going to qualify need those services. Along with that extra help that we're going to get in Medicaid is what we're doing in the opioid area. I've got a task force working on it right now. You go to these small communities, you go to the large communities, you go to law enforcement, you go out to the penitentiary, you go anywhere. This is a problem. I get the opportunity to address a lot of other states, talk to other states. We are not unique in Idaho at all, but we are going to put a plan together. We're going to formulate a plan to where we get ahead of this scourge that is really everywhere in the United States. We've actually made some progress in the last few years, but we got a lot more to do. And when we get Medicaid expanded, then we'll know where our weak links are as to what we need to do to progress there further. Our corrections problem. We've got a lot of work to do there. We have an incarceration rate that to me is way, way too high. So what are we doing there? Right now, we're making strategic investments in community reentry centers. This year, we funded 3 new centers throughout Idaho. We already have 3 here in the Treasure Valley, and that's a model that does several things. First, offenders have a place to go when the state's granted them parole or before they're released. These community centers teach job skills, they prepare inmates to reenter society, and importantly, they save taxpayer dollars. The area of transportation. Well, I always say that the most precious commodity anybody has is their time. And as we've seen this city and all the urban areas around the state grow, we know how that's changed. People say, it's taking me 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes longer to get to work. I said, well, part of the problem we're growing here is the people that moved here were having to spend an hour and 2 hours longer to get to work, and they think 20 minutes is a piece of cake. We have got to work on that in that area. It's an area that right now there's a study that the cities and the Associated General Contractors, they're basically looking at a study that I did for Governor Otter clear back in 2010, seeing what's still applicable, what's not applicable, what have we done since then, and what do we need to do going forward. But I need your help to get any initiative across the finish line. Raising taxes or raising fees in Idaho should be difficult, and it always will be. But if we collectively, communities, cities, the business, everybody gets together, I believe we can get this done. I was with some governors last week, and in some states you wouldn't suspect they're making investments in transportation. And we have to do that in Idaho because of that, the value of that commodity that's most precious to us, and that's our time, whether it's our time at work or whether it's time with our families. I want to thank you, the business community, for being a big driver in the state of Idaho. As JR told those kids from around the state years ago, you, the existing businesses community, are taking the risks, making the investment, doing the hard work in ways to create a strong Idaho. I want you to know that I'm here to assist not only you, but the Boise Chamber in any way I can to continue that success. Thank you very much.